I'm Lexi. In my path to try to heal myself and to try to discover who I am, to try to live up to the astrological challenges in my birth chart, I reflected a lot lately on self-love and what this means. What does it mean to love yourself truly? Because this word, self-love, is almost everywhere nowadays. People have various interpretations regarding it. Some people think that it's, you're being arrogant if you're focusing on self-love. Other people judge it that if you care and love yourself, you cannot love others. Others think that how could you love others if you don't love yourself first, the RuPaul tag. And I really thought about this issue lately, and it's been on my mind quite a lot because I want to practice self-love. I want to be better in my life, not from a really obsessive perfectionist point of view, because some people think that loving yourself means constantly having to improve yourself. But the more I learn about self-love, the more I accept myself for who I am, with all mistakes and flaws and issues. So I just wanted to share part of these reflections that I had on my journey. One thing I need to clarify, and that helped me reflect more on the meaning of self-love, is the difference between self-love, narcissism, and arrogance. So I think it's important to clarify what these three things mean, because then you have like a roadmap as to when are you practicing self-love and when are you veering into the two others, who are arrogance and narcissism, are basically two ways of being in the world that alienate you and distance you from others. And we don't want that. We want to be ourselves, but also be connected to others, right? Because our brain is a social brain. This is something that philosophers in ancient Greece knew before we discovered this scientifically with neurological research. Let me just get into it. Self-love. Self-love to my mind is self-care. So far, what I'm learning about it is that self-love is self-care. It includes some really tough components. So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with what it is you want, with what it is you need. And you have to work at clearly expressing these and having conversations with others about your needs and your wants and your desires, and see if these are being met. When situations are not meeting your needs, when people and relationships are not meeting your needs, self-love means having the courage to stand up and walk away. Self-love is not really about looking good and putting on like a good show and taking a lot of selfies and posting them on Instagram. There's nothing wrong with that, but taken to an extreme, those kind of behaviors are quite superficial, and they can harm you more than help you, and they can harm others in relation to you. And I'll talk a bit about narcissism in a second. But self-love is about taking care of yourself and doing those things that you normally wouldn't want to do, like eating 3 meals a day, getting your vitamins, speaking your truth when it is difficult. Sometimes you have to tell your boss that you don't want to be in that job anymore. Sometimes you have to tell a person, if you're in a toxic relationship or just in a relationship that you're not happy in it any longer, you have to tell them, no, I want to use the rest of the time I have in my life to be happy with somebody else. So it involves difficult decision making, standing up for yourself, having the courage to speak, having the courage every day, no matter how hard life gets, to think positively. So this is such a big thing about self-love. Ruminations, obsessive thinking comes from a place of trying to control, comes from a place of fear. But if you are in a self-love mentality, and if you want to practice self-love, you try to see the good aspect in everything. You try to approach life in a wise perspective. So something bad happens, you realize that every bad situation has a good side and a bad side to it. And every good situation has a good side and a bad side to it. So you kind of train your mind to think, well, oh, great, I managed to quit my job. I'm super happy right now because I was unhappy in the other job. But now I need to actually find another job, Or you earned a large sum of money, maybe an inheritance, and you're super happy. But then the other aspect of it is that now you're worried because you don't know what to do with all this money, and you're worried that maybe people might take it away from you, So just training your mind to think about good and bad every day. Like, for example, you find an object, you find a ring on the street, and you think, wow, great, well, good luck, right? But at the same time, you need to be aware that your good luck is somebody else's misfortune because somebody else lost that ring. So it's a kind of an Eastern philosophy that you can adopt about being aware that everything is transient, everything is in motion, and that every situation has a good and bad side. So don't despair. It's more of a reason to keep you balanced. That's what I'm aiming at with this explanation. Self-care, standing up for yourself, being strong, thinking positively, refraining from lashing out, understanding that every person in this lifetime has their own journey and is struggling with their own demons and is battling their own challenges. We all have different astrological charts, right? And different pressures and different blessings. So trying not to compare yourself with anyone else. Self-love is about realizing you are unique, you can shine your light, and your light does not need to dim the light of another person. You can both exist in this world, you and another person. You can both exist in this world and help each other out and both be bright and shine your life. Competition doesn't make any sense because your path is so distinct and so unique, and your challenges are so personal and tailored to you. The people you meet, the thoughts you have, the experiences you go through, they're all very different. So why would you compare yourself to someone else? That just creates a mentality of lack in your life. So the best thing to do is stay focused on your path, keep having the faith, and you will see that you will magnetize naturally through your positive thinking, through your self-love, situations that are meant to both teach you some lessons, because we are beings that constantly are growing and we're evolving in our lifetime. And a lot of us, some people think that we sign karmic contracts, so we're supposed to go through some difficult situations in order to grow and develop. But those situations can be more easily handled if you love yourself. So if you just take this wise approach, and if you don't punish yourself, if you don't rid yourself with shame and guilt. Guilt and shame are social feelings. They are meant to just alert us that a situation, a relationship is falling apart. And they are not meant to be dwelt on. So don't dwell on shame or guilt. If you feel either of these two feelings, shame we usually feel when a social rule has been broken. You feel ashamed because you lied to your husband or your wife about sleeping with somebody else. So you also feel guilty because you did something wrong. Now, dwelling on that feeling is not going to solve the situation. You need to make a decision. And this is where self-love kicks in. And other love, because self-love includes also respect for other people. So if you still have some respect for your wife or your husband, you go to them and you apologize to them. And for example, you say, well, I would like us to move past this if it's possible. If it's not possible to rescue the relationship, then we can just dissolve it and see how we can move on. Obviously, it's not as easy as that. I'm just giving you like a very simplified blueprint. Relationships are very messy. There's a lot of karma that you have to go through. It's very painful as well. But adopting this kind of approach makes the situation more dignified. It makes it more respectful. It makes it more wise. And it pulls back into you the energy that you put into this relationship and that became toxic. So you pull back toxicity and you transform it into self-love, into respect. And then you'll see that gradually the relationship will improve. But you need to be brave enough to apologize. So you need to walk over your ego. And you need to be brave enough to verbalize what it is you actually want and why it is that you actually created the situation in your lifetime. Because we can manifest a lot of negative relationships and negative things in our lifetime just so that we can become aware of what it is that we need to change. Our souls are asking us to pay attention and figure out like, hey, this relationship is not working out because you don't want this or you desire something completely different. Go on, come on, dissolve this thing and move on to the next one, because we've got lots of blessings for you coming up. Self-love can mean also tough love for yourself and for others, but tough love doesn't mean like you're like a drill sergeant that pushes people to the ground. No, it means, you know, realizing, okay, I have to restrain myself. I can't just live a life of debauchery and spend a lot of money and have a lot of like random sex and I don't know, buy a lot of things and be rude to a lot of people and not be responsible at all and not have a healthy self-care routine, and imagine that if you continue like this, everything is going to be fine. It's not going to be fine, because you're creating so much karma if you're engaging in these behaviors and all at once as well. Which basically means that at one point, if you're putting this energy out and you're not taking care of yourself and you're not loving others as well, you're just using them, it will just roll back onto you at a moment, because everything that we do has consequences in life, and we can control these consequences to a certain extent if we act from a place of love, of modesty, of joy, of it's gonna work out somehow. I have faith it's gonna work out. I have faith it's going to improve. I don't know how, but I'm just going to see what happens, okay? But I know in my heart that I have faith, I'm respectful, I use the right words, and I'm trying to cause the least possible harm to myself and to others, okay? So that's so far as I've been thinking about self-love, but feel free to share your opinions with me. What do you think self-love is? What are some of the practices? What are some of the books you've been reading? What are some of the things you've been talking to other people? I'm really eager to learn, and I'm really curious, so I love to feed my curiosity on a daily basis. Now, I just want to say some words about narcissism and arrogance, because I know that people, especially people raised in the Christian tradition, especially Christian Orthodox tradition, they have a very... Sorry guys, I got interrupted. I ran out of storage on my phone. But I was talking about the strange relationship that some people that are born in a religious faith have with self-love, because Christianity, to a certain extent, teaches you, like all great religions in this world, to be humble, to be kind, right? And that's a really beautiful thing in itself, even though I'm not religious myself or support the Christian church. But it's a nice value, right? But the thing is, some people take it to an extreme, and it's almost like this humbleness and this modesty turns into self-hatred, and then the self-hatred they project onto other people. So they feel so much pressure to be humble and to be kind and to just not show yourself, not even put yourself outward, that that they start eating at their own self-confidence. And then when people that are born in these faiths or are supporting these faiths to an obsessive degree, so to an unhealthy degree, and they lose this capacity to discriminate between their own needs and other people's needs, then it's very difficult, because they tend to want to, punish or take down people that take care of themselves, that are actually healthily self-confident, So that's really sad that these things are happening. And, you can take care of yourself, you can love yourself, and by loving yourself, you are actually naturally practicing, values such as modesty and kindness. But that doesn't mean that you have to look ugly or be locked up in your house or not love your body or not show up on stage and talk to a group of people if this is what you have to do, as part of your work here on earth. There are some distortions regarding how people understand self-love, and two of these distortions are, we are naturally recoiling from interacting with people that are arrogant. Arrogance is basically just an excess of confidence, and it's not self-love. It could be to some extent self-love, but it usually stems from a feeling of anxiety, a feeling of you're lacking something, and thereby you feel like you have to compete with other people, so you compensate by acting overly good at everything you're doing, right? So we all know, people that are just like, oh, I'm the best, move to the side, I'm better than you, and competing at everything. That's arrogant. And people don't like to be around people like this, because they feel like they can't naturally interact with them. It's almost as if the insecurity of that person takes over their personality, expands their confidence, and then ends up alienating people from them. So if you feel like you have to compete with other people, it's as if you think that you stand against other people. It's you against the world. And when you have this mentality, when you don't think that it's you part of the world, it's you in connection with other people in this world, then you end up creating a lot of misery for you and for other people. So ironically, by trying to act like you're the best and by inflating your ego, you end up pushing people away, so your ego becomes lonely and unsupported. But if you have a healthy sense of self, a healthy confidence, you understand that you're good at some things, but maybe you need to improve some other things. You are able to take in some constructive criticism, because also if you take in a lot of criticism, that's a mark of not being loving. It's a fine balance. This is why self-love is so difficult and so sought after and so valued, because it's not easy to achieve. It requires a lot of work. And I'm struggling as well with this as well. As women, especially in societies, you're encouraged to live for other people to your own detriment. So forget yourself. You need to give to others compulsively. You need to take care of everyone, men, old people, children, pets, the house, everything. But you have to figure out that in order to achieve self-love, there needs to be a balance between give and take. And there needs to be a sense of kindness supported by a sense of fairness. So I'm going to be kind with you right now, but I also want to be fair. I want to actually keep in mind how you are behaving towards me. If you are being disrespectful towards me and I am being kind to you, I need to stop being kind to you for a while so that you can have some space to reflect on what it is exactly that makes you act so disrespectfully. Okay, so if you continue to give to a person that disrespects you, then you are just completely obliterating yourself, making yourself unhappy, and you're supporting the arrogance of the person and the toxicity of the other person. So none of you is growing. You are locked in a system where you are suffering and the other person is also. It could be that they're suffering, but they're not showing it. They're just showing it through abusing you or using you or taking from you. The best way to actually solve such situations, if there is such a thing as a best way, since every situation is very personalized to your reality and your circumstances, but usually what you could do is pull back your energy. So what I said in the beginning, self-love is about realizing where am I putting my energy, how much am I giving of myself, how much am I receiving. So you need to keep like this check and balances. Obviously not all the time, but in important moments, in crucial moments, when you have to make a decision about what you want to do in this lifetime, where do you want to live, what kind of people do you want to have around you, what kind of family do you want to create. In those moments, that's when I feel personally that it's necessary to think about self-love and how you can practice it. You want it, if you want it. Not everybody wants it. So arrogance, an inflation of self-confidence and ego. To a certain extent, arrogance is not as detrimental as what I'm about to talk next, which is narcissism. Narcissism, I know, again, this is a word that's been thrown about a lot of times, especially on social media. But narcissism, I want to make it very clear, is a mental health condition. So it is something that has been, it's clearly defined in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of the American Psychological Association, this huge volume that they publish every 10 years. It describes it as a mental health disorder. What is really important to understand about narcissists is that they are people that are deeply immersed into a relationship of self-hatred. They hate themselves on the inside due to really disturbed family dynamics, where there was a lot of pressure in their household and they had to rise up to it by controlling. So they learn to control themselves, put on a false mask of who they are, so that they can acquire from other people the things that they need, but they are not reciprocating in the same amount. So, for example, narcissists usually have co-symptoms. They would be functioning alcoholics, or they might have additional eating disorders like bulimia or anorexia, but they have a way of masking that. They have a way of masking from the world how much they hate themselves and how much they don't love themselves and how much they want to punish themselves. And they do this by projecting onto other people a lot of their issues. So they have a very disorganized way of thinking, whereby one moment they might be very kind, the next moment they might be very cruel, because it's as if there is a psychological pressure pulling them back into that self-love, no matter how beautiful they are, no matter how successful they are. So, for example, you might meet a man that is very charming, very beautiful, very good looking. His body is fit, he wears good clothes, he has a way with words, he compliments a lot of people all the time, but he does it to an extent that you think the charm doesn't come naturally. It's almost as if it's a bit much, it's a bit much. And in that way, in that situation, the sense of I'm not going to say sucking up to other people, but there is an element of sucking up to other people, because a narcissist compliments you in a flood at the beginning of the relationship, and then gradually takes those compliments back once that person feels like they have you. And then they start to work on dismantling your own self-love, because seeing how some people reach a level of self-hatred makes them feel as if they can connect with others on a deep level. It's a very twisted logic, but getting into relationships with people that have a modicum of self-love and gradually eating up at their self-love is giving the narcissist a feeling of control and power, and it feels as if their self-hatred is mirrored into the other person. And as soon as they reach a moment where they feel like that person hates themselves as much as they do, they drop that relationship and they move on to another one. It's almost like energy sucking and coupling. So you have to be very careful, because they are super charming people and they are drawn to empaths like moths to a flame, like batteries to a plug. Because empaths, what do? They relate to other people, they give, they offer, they feel others out. So you have to be very careful, if you're an empath, to distinguish between a person that genuinely loves themselves, is sometimes arrogant, or a narcissist, which is a mental health condition. So those people clearly need counseling or therapy, some form of help, like professional help, in order to begin the process of dismantling their ego, which was built on a false sense of self, in order to acquire one that can relate to other people, because they cannot normally relate to other people. They look amazing on paper, amazing physically or materially, but emotionally and psychologically they are not happy, healthy people. They are those kind of people that look fantastic, have great bodies, but then they go home and they drink themselves to sleep. And then they know exactly what things to do to cover up. It's really sad. I'm not gonna lie. People with mental health conditions, don't judge them, guys. The best thing to do is, if you are in relationship with them, the best thing to do is distance yourself from them. Cut all contacts, don't go back. You can suggest some help to them, or if you can help them in any way to try to seek out help, then please do that, because they are so in need of it. Anyway, but I didn't want to make this video too long, and I'm getting to a point where I don't want to depress you guys. I speak from experience of having been in relationships with narcissistic people. I speak from my own experience of having struggled with issues of power and reaching a point where I inflated my ego and I became arrogant, and I suffered the consequences of that. My very wonderful guides and spirits are constantly keeping me in check, which I am so grateful for and I'm so happy for. So I went through a process of dismantling that part of my ego that was nauseous and greedy for power, and now I'm in a place where it's better, it's lighter, I'm connecting more with people. But at the same time, you know, it's also about learning to deal with self-love, learning what it is and how can I practice it and how can I improve it. And it is a lot about self-acceptance, which is creating kind of a paradox, because practicing self-love is accepting yourself, but at the same time it's quite a lot of work to accept yourself. So are you improving yourself? Are you perfecting yourself, or are you just accepting yourself? I don't know. Maybe this is something I need to figure out as I go along on my spiritual path. But I just wanted to share these reflections with you guys, because maybe you're struggling. I talked a little bit more about the spiritual, psychological aspects of self-love. I didn't talk about the practical, material aspects, but you know, nurturing yourself, taking care of yourself, you know, washing yourself, cleaning yourself. And I've been reading Lao Tzu as well, the Tao Te Ching, and it's been mind-blowing. I have to go back and read some of the verses, because some of the things I don't get in the second I read them. I have to reread them to get what he was trying to say. It's a lot about understanding that in order to become who you are, you have to give yourself up. You have to surrender the ego. And my throat chakra is kind of... which means that it's good. It's good. I'm reaching a point where I'm speaking from the heart. So give yourself up, give up the ego, and you'll find yourself. And most of the time we give ourselves up when we are relating to other people. Now, giving yourself up doesn't mean obliterating yourself, you know, forgetting to take care of yourself, forgetting to eat well, forgetting to sleep, and taking care of your basic needs. No, it just means giving up yourself emotionally, psychologically, mentally, in a way by acknowledging that you're part of the world and you're connected to other people, that your pain is other person's pain, your struggle could be connected to another person's struggle, that in order for us to grow and develop and live on this earth, we connect with other people, and we are constantly connected with other people, even through videos like this, you know? Okay guys, I'm gonna leave you on this positive note. It's a bit slightly longer than I imagined, but anyway, I hope this helps. Let me know down in the comments. Bye guys.